Hey, it's Invisible Walls, episode 175 on GameTrailers.com. I am back, bitches. Back from literally the dead.
We missed you.
Yeah, I missed doing the show, honestly. But episode 175, we're 25 episodes away from 200. Definitely going to do something special, quote unquote, for that big milestone.
It's going to be released on VHS.
Yeah,
so basically
that
gives me 20 episodes to nag you and then 5 episodes to cobble something together.
Right. That's pretty much how it works around here. Yeah. I will say one thing. There are more giveaways on this episode of Invisible Walls than any one we've ever had before. I mean, we have a ton of stuff to give away, so make sure you stick around until the end of the show and we'll give you instructions on that. We just got back from PAX. We're going to talk about that at length. If you guys have not gone, I think after you hear our discussion today, you will be compelled to go to Seattle for PAX 2012. Also, a lot of games to talk about, a lot of news stories to talk about. No time to waste time. Let's get straight to it. Marcus Beer is on the show today.
I am, and I have an apology. Last week, I ragged on GameStop for the whole Deus Ex thing, and I actually basically ragged on the regular employees. I want to apologize for that because it's not their fault. They're just following orders. So to those GameStop employees, I'm sorry I called you names and called you out last week. It's not your fault.
I actually wish I was on the show last week because my viewpoint on that whole situation is completely different from yours. In fact, I wrote about it in Reset this past weekend. I don't know if you actually did some investigating or not, but as it turns out, like GameStop kind of got shanked in that whole deal.
Because, well, this is what I'm hearing is that the Impulse thing, because it's kind of new, it hasn't actually come into the contracts with a lot of the retailers yet. So I think GameStop were actually exceeding their authority by going in and ripping open those boxes. And
ripping open the boxes, there's no defending that.
I don't think Square Enix were at fault because it's been a common occurrence in games, PC games in particular, over the last 20 years that you have these things in there.
Well, here's their fault. They didn't announce that was being packed in until the day the game was released. Same with OnLive. Their press releases strategically, quote unquote, went out the same day the game came out, saying, hey, these codes are going to be in there. By that time, the games were already shipped to GameStop, which put GameStop in a very awkward situation of, do we sell these and promote our competitor, or do we pull them out, or do we lose a ton of money and send these back and not be able to sell Deus Ex for a couple days?
I'd still like to see this mythical GameStop that actually sells PC games.
Right. Yeah, where was that anyway, right?
It's in the land of unicorns and fluffy bunnies.
Anyway, I think we would have an interesting discussion on that last week at the very least. But anyway, kind of water under the bridge at this point. And you've already heard from Ryan Stevens, who's on the show today.
That's me. And
we have some of our crew sort of cycling in and out. But this is the core for this week's episode. Let's
shoot the core
to it. So hopefully by now you guys have all seen our brand new feature that just went up yesterday. We're doing the top 100 trailers of all time, and the person who is helming that project, you know him, you love him, or at least you know his voice, Brandon Jones.
Howdy, thanks for having me.
And Brandon, I think the whole site melted down while you were gone on vacation for about 4 days.
Yeah, it was a bad week.
Seemed like the whole world was going to end when you weren't the one voicing our reviews for a couple days.
Well, I miss Madden. It's always nice to be around for stuff like that. But I'm back.
He's back.
And it's rough, too, because I get back, and then there's, like, those reviews that were being finished while I was gone. So even though I'm back, stuff still is going up.
There's me a few sort of hangovers of people that voiced stuff while you were coming back, so to speak. But let's talk about the top 100 trailers of all time. Jones, what were sort of the parameters that we laid down when we were selecting these trailers? Because I think some people might be a little surprised or shocked at some of the choices.
Well, it's a really tough thing to nail down, like what makes a really good trailer, because there's a lot of moments you remember very fondly, and then you kind of have to break down, like, why was I so moved by that? Was it because I was so anticipating that one particular game? Was it because I'm possibly biased? Possibly.
No.
And it's nice because I'm seeing a lot of people commenting about that are curious kind of what our criteria was. And I think at the end of the day, in the interest of speed and being true to ourselves, it was, are these still good? Do these still move us? You know, does a game that came out for the PS2 still have an impact, regardless of what console it came out on, that can hold itself up with big HD, super awesome trailers of today.
Who made the actual decisions? I'm guessing it was a group of people that basically
had our entire editorial team. How many hours total do you think we spent? Probably 15 hours.
Yeah, I'd say it's in the teens.
Total between
about 8 or 9
all
meetings.
The meetings we've had to pick. First, just picking the trailers to make the 100 and then ranking them all. It was an arduous task.
Yeah, every meeting was longer than I thought.
Were there major dissensions? Were there any fights? Is that why you were away last week? You didn't want the black eye showing?
I wish I was away for that. I was deathly ill. But there were a couple arguments. I mean, I think at the beginning it was a little rough because we were kind of finding our footing and how do we even go about handling this task? Once we figured out the formula of how we were going to do it, then I think it became a lot easier. But going back to what Brandon was talking about, that was, I think, the hardest thing to figure out was, do we take the place and time out of the discussion? For instance, Zelda trailers. When they would debut at E3, everybody goes crazy, everyone cheers. When you go back and look at that trailer now, is the trailer good? Or was it about the moment when the trailer was debuted? So we've taken that out of the equation. We don't think about, oh my gosh, the fanboys went nuts. We just look at these trailers now and say, are these compelling pieces of video content? Do they make us want to play the game? Do they make us excited for the game? Or was it just sort of a fabricated moment sort of in time in the timeline of our industry, so to speak? So that was the hardest part, was kind of separating the fandom and the moment when a trailer was debuted from the actual quality of the trailer proper.
I'm guessing there's probably a bunch of games that you perhaps thought they were trailers for, but it's like, oh, this was pre-internet.
I'm
sure there were, obviously it's the top 100 game trailers, not the top 100 games, but I'm sure there are some games that you thought, oh shit, where was the trailer for, the, perhaps, I don't know, the original Resident Evil? Well, guess what? The internet wasn't around. I mean, do you have any of those oh fuck moments?
We have dug up some.
Yeah, there's a lot of old stuff, and yeah, but it's interesting. People saying, I saw a lot of comments. People were like, "Oh, that I'm not really excited about that project because it's obviously the best games have the best trailers," and that's totally not true. Look at a case of like I'm Alive. Like, who knows how good or bad that
game may never even come out.
That trailer is fantastic. Yeah, I think there might be even one trailer in there for a game that like may not happen, released, probably right. Wasn't, and so. I think those because a lot of times those are, companies that are in desperate situations to get the word out. Look at something like Dead Island, where it's just like that trailer came out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden everybody's talking about that game, and they're not even sure what game it is they're talking about. They just know, and so yeah, it's interesting list.
So when you were going through this this arduous process, were there any sort of like trailers where you were just you just watched and you'd forgotten about them, and you're like, wow, I'm just so happy to see that again, and it did have
tons of them.
Yeah,
it was a labor of love in a lot of ways. I mean, just sitting there, I've been working in this industry a long time, and for me, seeing a lot of these trailers took me back into moments in time of my career, or even before I was doing this as a professional. And I was just running my own fan site and praying to God I got a job in the industry. So I loved it, man. Like, I was going home every night after our meetings, like, feeling really good and remembering a lot of the great memories I've had working in this industry over the years. It was a great exercise, and hopefully the result everyone's enjoys at the very least. I mean, there will be some dissension.
Oh yeah, well that's what's fun about doing lists, is you want to get people, and I want to get people arguing, especially because it's 100 out of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of trailers. So I want people to be making suggestions and stuff. And the meeting process was great because we all watched them, like at the same time, and a piece of media like that, plays to one person much differently than it plays to a crowd. And there were just some where it would be over and we'd all look around and we'd all be smiling, and it was just obvious that like that's just a good piece of media. I mean, even 3, 4, 5, 6 years later, like it still moves us, it still makes us happy, it still makes us scared. Like,
and some of it ties into your personality too. Certain people have a predilection for certain things that tug on their heartstrings or get their heart revving. And so I think that may be where some of the more heated discussions came in, is where it was a personality difference. Like, we were like, both these trailers are great, but I like it because of this, and he likes it because of that. So, and it's hard to argue that. You're like, right. I can't explain why I love this, but I do, and I love it way more than that other one. There's someone on the other side saying the same exact thing. So it was interesting. And going back to what you were talking about, the old trailers, it's hard to find them. For instance, in the first countdown, the video that went up yesterday, we have a Shenmue trailer from the original Dreamcast magazine.
Right.
I mean, digging this stuff up hasn't been easy. A lot of the early games didn't have trailers at all, or the trailers were just horrible, in all honesty.
Perhaps they only came on actual videotape.
Right. Oh, yeah, on a VHS or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and I think, the standards for trailers back then were much lower. A lot of the old trailers aren't really trailers at all. They're kind of like walkthroughs of the game, and I think Shenmue's is a little bit like that. But I think that's what endeared us to it, was it reminded us about all the cool stuff that was in Shenmue. So it's a sliding scale. It was tough trying to figure out how we rank these. And when you talk about 100 and you're saying, what's the difference between number 31 and number 69, it becomes difficult.
But it's tough. It's tough to to make something that really holds up. It's really interesting to watch all the trailers, even at every E3, and really say like, wow, that's clearly the best one. And why is that? Why did that move me more than any of the others?
Can we expect the worst 100 game trailers of all time?
If it was as difficult as it was to go through all the trailers for this, I can't imagine watching all those.
Yeah, my eyes just went cross thinking about it.
I don't. Editorial staff? Yeah, I don't think so.
Maybe I'll do that one for you because I'm the asshole on the crew.
Or maybe you should just choose like the
It's
worst
all
trailer
it's
of
all
every
you.
week.
You wanna take the reins
The
on
worst,
that one? I'm
the
not
worst
gonna
trailer
stop
of the
you.
week. Okay, there's a GT segment for you.
Anyway, stay tuned, folks. We'll be rolling them out over the next
Thanks for
couple
having me.
weeks, and thanks for watching. Thanks for coming, Jones.
Windy City fans, on your feet for your Chicago.
All right, so next we're going to talk about, surprisingly, what has been one of our more controversial reviews of late, and that was our review of Madden NFL 12.
Was it because of the voiceover?
Well, the voiceover was part of it. I think the other part of it was that, and I reviewed the game, for full disclosure, was that the review pointed out a lot of issues with the game, yet the game still got a pretty good score. And we've talked about this on the show before.
We talked about this on the show last week, actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, with JSX.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same deal. It's like certain people get pissed off by certain parts of games. We want to make sure we mention those issues for people who care. So in Madden, there are these sort of recurring issues the game has had. One is called suction blocking. Suction blocking is basically where if you're playing on the defensive line and you crack through, it looks like you're going to get a sack. Suddenly an offensive lineman will come over and basically suction your defensive player into him and start blocking him. So they actually do this for balancing reasons.
Sorry, I'm now chuckling because of the thought of somebody suctioning somebody
Is this a
else.
Madden only thing, or is this actually in real football?
It's not in real football, no.
Okay. Because
But the reason they
that
do
sounds
that-
pretty interesting.
It doesn't happen on the field in real football, but maybe in the locker rooms.
It's basically a stopgap because I don't think they figured out yet how to do AI for 22 players at a time that's that complex. So if they didn't have the suction blocking, there'd be like 80 sacks per game. Playing the game would suck. Well, people have been playing Madden forever, hate the suction blocking, and it does piss you off when you're playing the D-line. You have a sack, and some random dude just slides over and starts blocking you. But the truth of the matter is that only people who really play Madden hardcore know about the problem or care about the problem. So
I have no idea what you're talking
Right.
about, and I did
So
actually.
for
I played it. I have
Right.
put in a season and a half in on Superstar mode.
Right. So for you, it's not a big deal. And for most of the people who
Yeah.
played, it's not a big deal. But we need to also speak to those people who are quote-unquote Maddenites and who will play this game for the next 12 months. We need to let them know that's in there. Is that really going to bring down the score a ton? No, it's not. Now, truth be told, this year's Madden was probably the weakest attempt in the last 4 years, which is kind of sad because you think they'd be hitting their stride at this point. No new modes in the game whatsoever. Lots of very minuscule tweaks. And I think that's the thing with this game is they made this game for the Maddenites. It's not for the casual fans. So, it's still a great football game, and it deserves the score that it got. I gave it an 8.5. I think Metacritic right now is at like 8.3 or 8.4, so we ended up falling in that sort of comfort zone where you want to be, where you're at least within the realm of reason for the game. But people just flipped out, and I think part of it is that people just hate seeing sports games getting high review scores if they don't like sports. And you can tell by the comments, a lot of people coming in there don't give a crap about sports. You complained about this, and this. This should have got a 4. Dude, Madden NFL 12 is not a 4 out of 10, bro.
It's the overall.
not.
It's the overall package and how. I mean, like I said, for somebody like me, I went in. I played it because I was reviewing it for NBC. I played the Superstar mode. I played it on easy. Why? Because I don't get American football.
Right.
The rugby games that are coming up, I'll be playing those on hardcore and loving them. But I actually really enjoy just building a player, learning the running options, my running backs, and how my wide receivers worked. I still have no clue about the defense, so I really would not have any idea. I mean, look, for me, it's kind of strange. In my world, you have 15 guys on the field for 80 minutes, kicking the shit out of each other. Then you go get drunk. American football is a little bit different, but I enjoyed the experience for what it was, and I'm actually want to go back and try it at a slightly harder level because I've got no affinity with any of the teams. I mean, LA doesn't have a team right now, so I just
Not for long.
Well, I just went with the best team that they've rated, which I think is the Packers.
Yeah.
And
Super Bowl champs.
Yeah,
probably
I just had fun with it, but I mean, it's not something that I would live and die for. I'm going to wait for FIFA and the Rugby World Cup games with it.
It does look like ass on the PS3. I don't play sports
I don't
games
know
at
what
all.
happened there,
but
man. It's so
someone was
weird.
playing it, and I was like, "Do you have that set to standard definition?" And
Yeah.
no, it was.
Yeah, they
I don't know what's going on.
Completely just balked on the PS3 version for some. I mean, it is like night and
It's weird. We haven't seen something like this drastic
right.
in a while.
Our comparison videos at this point, it's like splitting hairs trying to figure out which is which. This game, it is blatantly obvious which version is which. I have no idea why that happened, and I'm sorry to you PS3 owners out there. You really got shanked on this game. But I think to sum it up in a sentence, we don't want to spend a lot of time on Madden, obviously, because not a lot of sports fans watch Invisible Walls. It's a better game than last year's game, but it's rated lower because the expectations of how much a franchise should grow in that amount of time, it hasn't hit that. So I think last year I gave Madden 11 a 9.1. This year gave it an 8.5. Still a great game. Just I would still recommend buying 11 at a discount and then paying for the online pass. I think you'll do better that way. So here we are. Another year has come and gone, and another year I've not been able to make it to PAX. This year I'm glad I didn't actually set up the whole trip to PAX because I would have been absolutely miserable if I were that sick at PAX. So unfortunately I was not able to go again. Sorry I was not able to meet a bunch of you guys who watch or listen to this show, although the rest of my esteemed panelists here did. Marcus, Rich, and Justin, you guys all went to PAX. What did you think of the show?
Had a frigging blast. I've never been to PAX before. I've always, when I was like PR manager or director, I always like palmed off the PAX on the experience on the community people because I'd heard some horror stories. And I went, and maybe it was because I only had, say, 1 hour to do anything, which was
Where you had
obviously
to actually work.
Yeah, the Pack Attack panel, and then I got time to just wander around, see
Lucky
games I wanted
you.
to see.
What
I
a
know.
nice time.
Seriously, on Saturday
Wander.
morning when I saw you in the press room, you just look, you were drinking your Slurpee, and you just looked so miserable.
I was psyching up. I was gathering my power.
But I gotta say, I mean, obviously the one other thing I was going to bitch about was the smell. And it was great. There were no major issues. There were a lot of lines everywhere. But
They've finally taken the shower thing to heart.
Well, the vibe there was just so chill. It was just a bunch of people
Yes.
who love playing games,
Yes.
and if they were in line, they weren't bitching and moaning. They were just talking to each
Yeah,
other,
it's
making
certainly
new
a lot
friends.
different than E3 or Gamescom or something where everyone's
Absolutely.
stressing and trying to get somewhere. I mean, you do have some people who are, sprinting and, knocking into people trying to get to their favorite game. But overall, it's a really cool vibe there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you feel a little more relaxed. The people there, they're showing their games. They're just happy to have people playing their games. They're not worried about, necessarily reception or whatever. They're like, everyone has a kind word, and people just want to play games, talk to other people, have fun. So
Now, yesterday
it's
it
a
came
cool
out
scene.
that 3,000 to 5,000 people had forged passes for
They
PAX.
did it out of love or
Yeah.
possibly
Really?
to sell
I
them.
saw,
for money, dude. Think about that. If you sell those at $60,
They were
5,000 of those, dude. Whoever did that made a ton of money.
There were guys scalping them outside of the Sheraton, like
Yeah.
right across the street.
They were probably the fake
and-
ones.
When I rolled up on the Saturday
Wow.
morning, there were scalpers there, and the scalpers were gone inside 35 minutes because security came out and the Seattle PD was there. And then, to be fair to the PAX enforcers, who are obviously the volunteers, they had they had signs like come talk to me about forged PAX passes, and the organization was actually really on it. And I got to say, the organization on PAX, they could show E3 a thing or 12.
Oh, yeah.
They really could. And the venue is really good as well. I mean, the fact that you don't have to eat that crappy convention food, it's in a place where there's actually, even if you want to go to have a crepe or a Subway outside, you can go back in really quickly. The security people, who were all in, their 50s and 60s, and little old ladies too, and they were just so nice and sweet, and they were getting no grief. And then I spoke to the PR people who obviously work these events, and they're like, ugh, and they were like, we just love it here. I mean, yes, there were the occasional dicks who came up and said, give me a t-shirt, I want a poster, I want that, and
Well,
those
we're not
guys
the
you have to
black
deal
one.
with. But but I mean, nobody had a bad word to say.
That's good. Now,
Yeah.
I heard it was really crowded. Do you think it's outgrown that venue? I mean, part of it probably was that an extra 5,000 people were in there who weren't supposed to be in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they expanded it. I mean, they moved up like some of the indie stuff, and there's some of the indie games and some other things that were moved up to the 6th floor because like every year it's been getting big, and I've been going for 3-4 years now, and like it's completely just outgrown what they've done since the first year. So they, it's like my first year, there was like just one main hall, which was across the Sky Bridge. Then the next year it was that main hall, and then they expanded a little bit with the indie stuff and like the PAX 10 stuff and the bring your own PC on the other side of the Sky Bridge. And then you go into this year, it's just like it's pretty much you have your main hall, which is where like all the big stuff is, but then that secondary hall had a bunch of big stuff, and then you have your indie stuff and some indie stuff on the 6th floor along with other random things.
And the Sky Bridge was full
and
as
the
well.
Sky Bridge was full as well.
Now, let's talk about the attendees' perspective, because I was talking to Jeremy Hoffman, the producer of Game Trailers TV, and he had heard a story from one of the PR folks there who said, I'm not going to say what the game was, but he essentially went up to the line for one of his games and handed a card to one of the girls in line and said, when you play our game, come straight to me and I'll give you all the swag that we have, at least one of everything. And basically what he was doing, he was trying to see how long it was taking for people to get through the line for his game. So he hands her the card. I guess it was at like 11 o'clock in the morning or something like that. She showed up at 4:30. She had stood in line for 5 hours to play Game X.
Wow.
What was it, Batman?
Well,
I'm not going to say what game it was.
they were they were actually holding up signs.
But
They
it
were-
wasn't like a mega game. It was kind of a middle-of-the-road
They
game
were-
that has some hype, but not one of the top 4 for Q4, so to speak.
Again, one thing I'll say about the PR people who were there, they did get very savvy, and they did have people walk around with us little signs saying, the wait from here is 4.5 hours. And, those were the games where, the Old Republic, Borderlands 2, Mass Effect 3 was obviously a huge line.
Yep.
The line for
Skyrim,
Bioshock
I'm guessing,
Infinite.
was pretty big.
Skyrim was
Oh, yeah.
huge. Yeah, I mean they
Right
were
from the beginning.
they were really, really long, and you have to expect that. But again, the atmosphere was so great. I mean, yeah, there were lines for so many games. I mean, I think it reminds me of that old episode of South Park where the guys are in line for something at the carnival. They don't know what it is, and 3 hours later they're in line for the complaints. But people did not seem worried about it, and because it wasn't perhaps as big as E3, and you had like 30,000 games to see, I think people had more time. People planned it out a little bit better. So I mean, there were some huge lines, but I don't think it caused anybody any issues.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other part, too, is it makes me appreciate my job a ton, because you realize these people are standing in line for 4 or 5 hours to play a game, and we just kind of take it for granted. The mail shows up every day. Oh, look, there it is.
Well, I will say there was one game that I did pull the press card for, and that was the Borderlands 2 demo.
Yeah.
And so I went up to the PR director, who I know quite well anyway, and she snuck me in. But I made sure I stood at the back, and the people who were in line got the seats and got the comfortable views, and I just stood at the back, and it was fantastic. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I mean, for those that aren't in the industry, if you made it to PAX, you had the opportunity to play Rage, Skyrim, Batman Arkham City, Assassin's Creed multiplayer for Revelations, Starhawk multiplayer.
Yeah, I haven't
Twisted
played.
Metal
I haven't played
multiplayer.
most of that stuff before. In the show.
Yeah.
Even you
but I
hadn't
mean,
played it. Yeah.
Dance,
Yeah, but I
Dance
mean,
Central 3,
Dance
or
Central
Just
3,
Dance, whatever it
and
was. The
then-
lines for that were mental.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
And it was like, the first time, I want to say it was the first time for Halo Anniversary to be played. So that multiplayer was available like the whole weekend across the street, but it was still,
They actually had Halo Fest, and that
Yeah.
was actually a really cool touch with the 10th anniversary coming up, because I wandered into that, and it was basically an exhibition of all things Halo from the very first game all the way through, and they had some of the first covers, they had some of the character models, and you just wandered through this history of Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3, skipped Halo Wars and ODST, but then they were having multiplayer play sessions. There were people answering questions. There were obviously their own panels, and if you're a Halo fan, it was perfect. And there was all the swag that you could buy, the red versus blue stuff, and all the mental stuff. So I guess we should talk about what we saw and perhaps some of our personal highlights of the show. Rich, you got something? No? Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I do not normally play first-person shooters because I get motion sickness, and the one series that I have been able to play a little bit is the Battlefield Bad Company series. So going in, our first appointment on Friday or Saturday was Rage, and that's completely first person. And we played that for like 20 minutes roughly, and I didn't get sick at all. So I was feeling pretty good.
It's
it was
that smooth.
Yeah, it was. It was the beginning of the game. So, and I was just like, okay, I got through like the first quest, and I was like, okay, that's
I was
it
I was
cool.
proud of you, Rich.
Thank you.
Shooting those dudes in the first person.
Yeah, because I was like, literally, as soon as I picked up the controller, I was just like, I need to make sure there's a trash can nearby. 'cause
There's nothing
I
worse
don't
than
know.
motion sickness, man.
Yeah,
It is horrible.
yeah, that,
Wow.
and then I saw Sonic CD, which was totally nostalgic. Just didn't have time to play it.
Justin, what did
Yeah.
you see that you liked?
Well, I mean, this is the first time I had the chance to play Skyrim and Rage. So I've heard other people talk about it. So played those both pretty cool. Rage totally feels like an id game. It just has that that feel, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
The way the guns work and the way moving around works and all that. Skyrim, just got a tiny little taste of that. Seems pretty good. It's hard to take in a game with such a huge scope, just like walking
it
around
doesn't
for a
show
few
well
minutes.
at trade shows. Well, actually, it does, which is a testament
I mean,
to
it
how
looks
sweet the game is.
it looks quite nice, and they have some cool stuff going on. So yeah, looking forward to that. But we saw a few smaller things were cool, like the new Trials Evolution.
Oh,
Actually
yeah.
played that,
See,
which is like
I watched that on the site. I was disappointed. I was like, that
well,
doesn't even
it's
look
more
like Trials.
Oh, it looks like
they took it
Trials.
out of the warehouse, and now you're outside, but it's still Trials.
It doesn't seem as technical as the first one.
No, there's some cool stuff, but and typically if you saw stuff that we did, it is all the dudes that know exactly what they're doing playing,
Yeah.
and you don't have to see
The trial and
500
error.
restarts
Yeah, that's
in
that's
50
probably part of
seconds.
it.
Right,
But yeah, it looks like a lot of cool new stuff. The multiplayer, I don't know if that's hugely important addition, but it's cool to have.
Yeah.
The guys that did the dishwasher game have a new game that's a
Charlie
beat 'em up
Murder.
called Charlie Murder.
Ska
Yeah,
Studios.
it looks pretty cool. It was going to be an indie game, but then Microsoft's like, "Hey guys, this looks pretty cool. Why don't you put some more stats and game in it and stuff like that?" So it's kind of a
Summer
little
of
bit along
Arcade
the
next
lines
year.
of
Yeah,
a little bit
but-
along the lines of Scott Pilgrim. You beat people up and numbers come out of them, get EXP. I'm not crazy about the numbers, but it has a cool art style. The guy actually used it to propose to his fiance, who is the art director for their thing. So
Yeah.
What about you, Marcus?
So there were a couple of games that I already knew, like Gotham Imposters. I saw that it looks a lot better. Lollipop Chainsaw, randomest title ever. They were giving away these cool like chainsaw fingers to give out to people, the big like foam fingers. But actually, the first game that surprised me, they had the most cool way of getting my attention ever. A guy gave me a card and he said, "Do you like being evil?" I'm like, okay. I am British. It's
Ding, ding,
it's in
ding.
our DNA. And then he said, "Do you like Dungeon Keeper?" And it was like, yeah. So they sent me down. This is a Facebook game called Dungeon Overlords. And if you've ever played Dungeon Keeper, it's a way slower paced version where, you don't get level 15. It takes you like a couple of days to get to level 15. But it's a massive multiplayer version running out of Facebook. You build up your dungeons. There's lots of resource management in it, lots of thought behind it. It's probably way more tactical than Dungeon Keeper is. And I came home, started playing it, and I've been playing it nonstop since Monday.
Wow.
It's really
Mission
a bunch of
accomplished.
fun. Yeah, really a bunch of fun.
how
It's still
social
in beta.
of you.
Well,
You're being
this
so
is
social.
this is the
Are
kicker.
you one of those jackasses
there's
that
no
tells me you
pop-ups.
need like
No,
5
but
bricks to
this is-
build your latrine?
This is the great thing. There's no spamming your friends. There is no pop-ups. They do have a system where you can buy gold to help things go a little faster, but you don't have to play with your friends. You play with anybody you want, and there's combat. But they're
Have you spent real money yet?
Actually, no, they did send me some money to get me started, just to get me through some of the early levels. But no, it's
Little bribe
it's
there.
everything. Say the Sims games and Zynga's stuff is not. So that was the first one. Joe Danger 2. I saw that. I was kind of like on an indie crusade. Joe Danger 2, Joe Danger in Hollywood. Loved the first one. I thought it was just totally mental. Second one looks just as cool. It's obviously more movie driven. Loved that. I obviously, we'll talk about Borderlands in a bit because that was just so much fun. The rest of the stuff I'd probably seen at E3, but the most random title was Uncle Slam, which was this iOS game. It's Punch Out with presidents of the United States. All the presidents are in there. It's a
Brilliant
parody.
idea, by the way.
Brilliant idea. It looked a little dodgy. I'm sure they wanted to do it, like cartoony and stuff. Didn't get to play it, but it was the most random thing, and they were sort of like just giving out presidential style buttons with "Vote for Uncle Slam" on them. So I thought that was kind of cool. But I mean, I love being able to go out and see games that I wouldn't get to see at E3.
Right.
I loved even games like Zombies Must Die, which is 4-player co-op by a British dev team coming out after Christmas on Boxing Day as an XBLA game. But yeah, I was just totally stoked to be there, and I gotta give a shout out to everybody who came to the Pack Attack panel. That was a lot of fun. It turned out to be the grumpy old men of gaming with myself, Gary Witter, Jeff Green, and of course Pack. But yeah, it was an absolute blast, and it was a pleasure to meet as many people who wanted to come up and talk about Invisible Walls. I've never experienced that before because I haven't done these sort of things. And at E3, nobody gives a shit. But yeah, the fans who came up and it's like took pictures and said good things, like thank you. I mean, it's like that's really a good buzz, and that's why I'm not going to Call of Duty XP this weekend because I know it will totally harsh my PAX buzz.
Now it's $60 for 3 days, right? For general admission.
60 or 80.
I don't know.
Worth every penny if you spend around that amount, though.
Yeah.
If you're not in the industry and you get a three-day pass, I'd say absolutely. Absolutely.
Book it way in advance, though, with regards to hotels, because they filled up real quick. But everything's walking distance. Seattle's a beautiful city this time of year. Lots
This
of great
time of
places
year?
going
Well,
in.
yeah,
Well, it is.
Yeah, we
I
didn't
mean,
get any rain.
yeah.
It didn't rain like last year and the year before. We got rain.
Weather
during,
report.
Like, granted, it wasn't like consistent. It was just off and on. We had rain, but this year was no rain. Weather was beautiful.
So there you
Highs
have
in
it,
the low
folks.
80s, lows in the low 60s. Very temperate.
Thank you, Weatherman Justin.
You're
now-
better than the people that predicted the hurricane.
Now a word from our sponsor.
So anyway, folks, make the pilgrimage. Go out to PAX. Maybe next year I'll be there with the rest of the crew.
Thanks, Mom Gamer. You rock.
All right, next we're going to talk about one of the bigger debuts from the last several weeks / month. Borderlands 2. I would say the first game was a bit of a cult hit, a surprise hit. I think it did a lot better than a lot of people
It
thought.
was commercially successful.
Yeah,
Very much so. It
Yeah.
spawned,
10
3
times over.
expansions and
Now, to qualify myself out of this conversation, I did play the first Borderlands. I played it for a few hours. It was way too grindy for me. I can totally respect that some people enjoy games like this, so I'm going to kind of leave the discussion up to you guys. Marcus, what was the one thing you saw in Borderlands 2 that you think may make a person like me enjoy it more than the first game?
I think the first thing
Can I
is
guess?
variety.
Yeah.
The first one, it did get very repetitive. You're looking at the same levels over and over again. Didn't really, Pandora was kind of bland and deserty, and the quests they did get grindy. And this was the great thing about the Borderlands 2 presentation at PAX. They came out of the door and said, we loved it. We were really proud of Borderlands 1, but we know we fell short on a bunch of things. And they listed off how, there were issues with, connecting with your friends online once you were at certain levels. There were issues with the story. There were issues with the variety, and how a lot of the missions were very, very grindy.
Yeah.
And, they went through and said, we're going to nail all these off the bat. And I had no quibbles with any of those things because, you get a 15, 16, it does turn into a grind. And, it
Well, it
can
seemed
be
to
a
me
pain.
like they kind of cut corners a little bit in the first game.
Well, they got it out, but they got it out, and deservedly so. It got a lot of recognition. It's a game I went back to a couple of weeks ago, and I totally enjoyed it. So I went in, sat in on the Borderlands 2 presentation at PAX, and I mean the first thing that they came out with was, for this one they want to make sure that the game design and the story are intertwined for the first time, and they said we have actually gone to the lengths of putting the writer and the designer in the same room, which is you think it's like a no-brainer, but they had a giggle with that. And so it basically starts off not long after Borderlands 1 finishes. You're still on Pandora. Handsome Jack, who is a key character, has left you for dead, and your objective is to get it back, get him killed and free the world, whatever. You start off on the Ice Wastes, which is obviously a very nice change. Looked really, really nice. They start you
Same
off.
art style, right?
Yeah, same art style, same sort of faux shell shaded.
Cel-shaded.
Yeah.
It looks a little more intense,
well,
if that makes sense. Like even
yeah,
more
little
cel shaded.
bolder.
It pops. It really does
that's
pop.
a good way to put it.
Yeah. So you start off, and the first thing you see are these things called the Bullymongs, which are these huge sort of like abominable snowman / gorillas, and they start coming at you, and you start to see how the AI has changed, because these things will they'll either run at you and attack you, or they'll stay back, climb, break hunks of rock off and lob them at you. I mean, you see a burnt out car in the corner, so if you make a run towards that, a Bullymong will pick that up and throw it at you. And then you start to get into the weapons, because the weapons was the great thing about Borderlands. So they've actually changed it now. So all the weapons have their own brands. And you start off with one that basically, I think it's called the TDR, which is, in the words of the presenter, was the Walmart of guns. And this is, it looks very plasticky, very, cheap to produce. And it's just, basic assault rifle, you shoot it. But the kicker is that instead of reloading, you throw it. And when you throw it, if you leave a couple of bits of ammo in there, it will stun the enemies, and then it nanites recreate it in your hand. So you just basically get these guns, so this disposable, and you can literally use them as grenades and just throw them, because the more bullets you've got in them, the bigger stun effect.
Interesting.
Which is really
a
quite
cool
fun.
idea,
Yeah. And then the next weapon they showed us was the Bandit brand, because the Bandits have gone into business for themselves making weapons, and they're obviously all cobbled together from bits of old tech. And the great thing about the Bandits weapons is they come with weapons clips that hold 700, 800, 900 rounds.
Whoa.
And these things are bloody monstrous. And again, they just
But you
carve
need that
everything
for
up.
Borderlands because a lot of the enemies are bullet sponges.
They are, but like I said, the AI has really, really been tweaked. I mean, there were segments in the first game where you could just stand up on a mountainside and just pick people off, and they wouldn't come after you. Now they climb stairs, they climb ladders, they'll hop on buildings to come and get at you, which is really cool. The other thing that they've got is they've tweaked the character tree, where they had that RPG element, and it got a little bit all over the place with the different powers. But the one they showed us dual wield. And dual wield on Borderlands 2, you can dual wield any weapon in the game. So whatever it is, you don't even have to have two of them. It'll basically replicate your weapon for you, and you're away. So when you're firing 2 rocket launchers, flamethrowers, etc., and it's time limited. Obviously, it's like it's a power up that drains down. But just watching that in action was actually a shitload of fun, and people like whooping and cheering. Let me see what else was there as we went through the game.
Anything you didn't see that you wanted to see?
No, actually, no. I mean, I went in there with a very open mind, and I just liked those little touches that Gearbox do very, very well. For example, one of the enemies that you come up against is this guy with a huge shield, and strapped to the shield is a midget. Or a little person. So basically, he holds the shield out. You can't shoot at him or get around him. So you have to shoot and free the midget. So you don't kill him.
The little person.
Yeah, the little person runs off. I'm sorry if it's offensive. But yeah, the little person then runs off and starts attacking this guy and distracting him.
That's awesome.
So you can sneak around the back and blow the crap out of him. And the little person is totally pissed. And he, even when he gets slammed away and bounces off some walls, you then see him limping back into the battle. And it's kind of the moments. Like Gizmo from Gremlins, but again, it's those little touches that you see throughout the demonstration. Then they took us into the bandit camp, and you go all the way up because you have to rescue your friend. And they show the vista of Pandora, where you've got I think it's Hyperion City. You've got this huge lake, and all this stuff is playable. You can travel to all these things within the games as opposed to just them being paintings. But then they introduce the Handsome Jack's robot army, which is basically controlled from the moon. He's got a moon base, and these things start, calling in reinforcements, and then there's like these big mechs that come, and some will just come to blow up at, the suicide bots. And even if you shoot their legs off, they will drag their torsos towards you. Then there's other ones that call in repair bots, especially some of the big ones, and then you have to take on the repair bots first. And the kicker is, if these repair bots are around and nothing to repair, they then create this shield that reflects all your bullets. So you have to shoot a robot to get them to start repairing. But yeah, it's just all about lots and lots of attitude. They've tweaked, like I said, the co-op modes now. You've got up to 4 players, which, in the vehicles you can have 2 people, 1 person driving, 1 on guns, 2 people hanging out. But they're making it easier for people to get in. When there's a big level disparity in the past, you couldn't pair up. They're working on changing that. So I got to say, I mean, there's not many games I go into a presentation coming out and then come out thinking, I want to play that now. But, they had this nice touch at the end where it's like, you might be concerned we don't have as much weapons as possible, as the original game. And they just hit a button, and literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these weapons started spewing out all over the floor, all of just the assault rifles. And they said there was like a couple of thousand just variations on that.
Wow.
So I got to say, thumbs up to 2K and Gearbox in particular. Brilliant presentation. Brilliant looking game. And then at the PAX panel, they had 900 people there, and everybody who attended got a code to get the game for free when it launches, which I thought was a huge way to win back the community, especially after the Duke Nukem debacle.
Right. So nothing but thumbs up.
Nothing but 2 huge thumbs up. It looks like a pantload of fun. It looks like the game that I think, when it comes out next year, we should just get drunk and just hook up and play over XBLA. Because I think that's it's one of those games.
Drunk.
Can I quote you
Alone.
out of context?
No, seriously, you just just get drunk together. We'll hook up the machines up here. I think everybody will have
Grind
a
some
blast.
levels.
Not so much on the grinding anymore. I think they've done a really, really good job. The one thing I'm worried about is the vehicle driving, because I hated that in Borderlands 1.
Shoot 'em all!
So that does it for episode 175 of Invisible Walls here on GameTrailers.com. Got a bunch of stuff to run through with you guys right before we get away here. First of all, I mentioned giveaways at the beginning. We have a ton. We have codes for Call of Duty Resurrection for the Xbox 360, only out for the 360 at this point. We also have codes for, what is it? League of Legends character skins?
They're hot.
They
You could only
are.
get them at PAX.
They're
But
hot.
we're bringing them to you.
They're hot. We also have some swag, some figurines, toys, etc. for Pirates, or wait, what is this
Plants
game?
versus-
Plants vs. Zombies.
You know, one of the biggest downloadable games ever.
In
yeah.
the history of downloadable games.
Yeah.
So we have some figurines to give away for Plants vs. Zombies. Here, how are we going to do this, guys? There's so much stuff to give away. No quizzes this time.
I say we just give it all to one person and let them
Me.
deal with giving it away.
So the one rule is you have to follow Invisible Walls on Twitter. You're going to have to follow us all through Labor Day weekend. We're going to be giving away the whole time. I think we'll figure it out on the fly as we go, but you're going to have to follow us. There's no set schedule. So follow Invisible Walls on Twitter, and you could win some really cool stuff this weekend. Also, one other piece of housekeeping. The summer drought's over, folks. Finally, the games are coming out.
We are wet right now.
There are reviews galore early next week. Just to give you a quick rundown of all the reviews that are going to be out probably in the first 2 days of next week. NHL 12, Dead Island, Resistance 3, and Driver San Francisco. And don't sleep on Driver San Francisco, folks. I know it's one of those under-the-radar games, but I think you might be surprised at how good it is. So, big-time reviews next week. Don't forget the top 100 trailers of all time. Going to be rolling out over the next several weeks. Thank you so much for supporting the show. I think Marcus can attest going to PAX and meeting some of you guys face-to-face is really a special moment.
Oh,
And
it's
if you
And
want
I'm
to
not
awesome.
joking. It really is a special
And if you
moment.
want to meet some of us face to face,
Interns. Yep. If you really want to meet us and realize what douchebags we are,
Hey,
and
some
work
of us,
with us hand in
some of
hand
us
for-
celebrate our douchebaggery.
yeah. We are still looking for interns. I think we got a couple people, but we need some more. So send us an email if you're an intern, particularly folks in the LA area, because we are in Los Angeles. Send your email to gametrailers, that's plural, interns, that's plural, at gmail.com. Again, you have to get credit from your university.
junior or senior from a college, not a high school.
Right.
Which
Be
I now
hot.
have to clarify.
Yeah. You have to be able to get credit.
And you must be hot and female.
That would be...
That was funny like 3 years ago. But
I know, but I've got the accent. It's still funny.
So anyway, that does it for episode 175. I hope all of you have a most excellent Labor Day weekend, a long weekend.
Or a
To the-
bank holiday in the UK, as it's called.
Right? And to all of you having fantasy football drafts this weekend, good luck. I know I have 3, and I'm about ready to go bonkers. So anyway, everyone have an incredible holiday. We'll see you next week. Invisible Walls is up and out.